Good evening. Welcome to the 2022 State of the City presentation. My name is Evelyn Bush, and I am the City of Toledo's first ever kid mayor. I am in 4th grade at Glenwood Elementary. I, along with members of Kid Council who have joined me tonight, are using our term in office to learn how a city works and how we can make it better. My council colleagues and I are concerned about the environment, litter, safe streets, homes for pets, and fun things for us to do. We are the future of Toledo, and we care about the future. We look to the adult mayor and council to make decisions with an eye on that future for the betterment of Toledo. I have learned a lot from the man I get to introduce next. We have fun going to events, working in our office, and talking about history together. When you see the mayor on the news or in a meeting, you may think he's really serious. He actually has a pretty good sense of humor, especially for 4th graders. While he can be silly, I know Mayor Wade Kapszukiewicz believes in my future and the future of Toledo. I'm excited to be able to introduce him tonight. Please welcome Mayor Wade Kapszukiewicz.
Coming down. You got it? Ready? Let's move it over here. Great job. Good job. All right, wonderful. Wasn't that a wonderful introduction by Evelyn? Great job. And she's playing a little injured. She has her neck's a little sore. Not sure what happened, but we think it might have been trampoline related. So I really want to appreciate her being here this evening, and I want to thank her for her service as kid mayor. And I want to thank everyone who's taken the time to be here this evening. In particular, the Metro Parks. I want to thank them for their generosity in hosting this event this evening. I want to thank members of City Council. I know several of them are here. I want to thank the Kid Council, who is here. In addition to Evelyn, her Kid Council is here with her. Members of my cabinet are here, both of our chiefs, my directors and commissioners, the Engage Toledo Ambassador Academy, which graduates tomorrow evening. Many of them are here, and I want to thank our interpreters from Deaf Services, making sure that everyone can benefit from the information we share tonight. Both Desiree and currently David are working hard to make that a reality. I deliberately timed this speech to occur on the hottest day of the year, and I demanded that I be in direct sunlight so that this little handkerchief would be put to good use. I think after 4.5 years, you may know that if it were 82 degrees below zero, I would still have a little sweat on my brow, and when it is 82 degrees above zero, you can anticipate that I'll be making use of that. But it is no worry. It's just how God made me. I've always been this way, and I am what I am. So, welcome, though, to this location and this discussion about where we are as a city and where we're headed as a city. Irene Drouillard was a 15-year-old girl, lived in Toledo, Ohio, and in 1922, she took $21 and walked into her bank, the Ohio Bank, and took that $21 and put it into an account. Her instructions were that it be delivered to the mayor of Toledo 100 years in the future. That would be 2022, and I suppose I would be that mayor. The amount of her $21 with interest would have grown to $1,005 by then. She became a little bit of a celebrity. The story was picked up around the country, and recently the Toledo Blade reminded all of us of her generous act. And she only had one specific request for what her $21 or actually by today, $1,000 should be used for. She said she didn't care what it was used for, provided it was used for the betterment of our city. What are we doing for the betterment of our city? We're going to talk about that tonight, and specifically, we're going to talk about why we're here, right here on this very hot day. Well, there is some symbolism to this. Whenever I give my State of the City address, I do believe that I want to try to make a symbolic connection to the subject matter. A couple years ago, when I wanted to emphasize education and the need for pre-K, and Hope Toledo and the College Promise and the need to do better in education, we had our State of the City right across the street at Wade High School. There's always a theme, there's always a reason. The reason we're here today, right now, the reason you can see orange cones over my shoulder and a backhoe over my other shoulder is because this is a time of building for Toledo. It's a time for construction. It's a time for investment. Very specifically and very literally, we're here in this location because we're building. We're under construction. We have an opportunity through the American Rescue Plan to make investments in this city that haven't been made in 100 years. This very location in the Metroparks is a living example of the sort of investment I'm talking about. Looking around today, all the attendees in person, you kind of look around and you see a construction zone. You see orange cones and dirt being turned. But in a couple years, you're going to see this. This is an architectural rendering of what this space is going to look like in a handful of years. And that is because we made an investment in ourselves, a $200 million investment to reimagine our riverfront and to redefine our city in many ways. That's what that image that you just saw go across on the slide is an indication of what will literally happen here, but what metaphorically can happen all throughout our city if we take advantage of this opportunity. Bigger picture, more clearly, more directly, the opportunity I'm talking about takes the form of the Toledo Recovery Plan. What is the Toledo Recovery Plan? Well, it was adopted by Toledo City Council last December. At their last meeting of the 2021, they approved it. And it is our plan for how we should appropriate the $180 million that we've received from the federal government as a result of the COVID pandemic. Every Toledoan from every neighborhood will benefit from the Toledo Recovery Plan. And how do I know that? Because we asked you, the citizens of Toledo, what you wanted to see in this plan. We built the plan based on your input, your public input, and we gathered it in a number of ways. We had 6 neighborhood meetings all throughout the city. We had 1,700 surveys that were distributed in different ways, and based on all the different ways we received information, well over 2,000 people were able to put their fingerprints on how we could invest these dollars at this time. It's important for us that we listen to the citizens, and it's important for the citizens to know that we have listened. In a time of great cynicism, we need to show that we listened and that we followed through on what you wanted us to do. Well, here's what we heard. What were our priorities? What were your priorities? As you can see on the screen, there were 5 general categories: safe and livable neighborhoods, youth, recreation and parks, job creation and economic impact, avoiding cuts to city services, and green and healthy housing. Now, while all 5 of those had a certain level of support, as you can see toward the left with those green bars on our graph charts, those were the ones that were most important to the city of Toledo, and so we focused there first. The primary areas of expenditure broke down like this: a little over $80 million to make sure that there were no cuts in city services and that we were growing the size of our safety forces. Over $40 million for investments in youth, recreation, and parks, $24 million for green and healthy housing, a little over $19 million for safe and livable neighborhoods, and over $15 million for job creation and economic development. That's what City Council passed last December. But before we leave this slide, I want to make a very important point that maybe hasn't been discussed enough. While we literally and directly received $180 million from the federal government, because of our relationship with our partners and the communication and the building and the cooperation we did with so many other regional partners in and around town, we have an opportunity to leverage an additional $132 million through the Toledo Recovery Plan. Let me give a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Just last night, City Council passed an ordinance, and it was unanimously passed, to help fund pre-K in our community. I'm going to talk later about why I believe that's important. I was thrilled that City Council passed, and I think it was important that it passed unanimously. Our promise, our commitment in the Toledo Recovery Plan was that over 2 years, we would appropriate $2.5 million. But our $2.5 million is being matched by $2.5 million from the county commissioners, $5 million from ProMedica, and $10 million from the Toledo Public School System. So while you may look at the Toledo Recovery Plan and believe that the pre-K amount is $2.5 million, you really should be looking at it as $20 million. That's what that vote of City Council did last night. It unlocked a door that leads to $20 million, not just 2.5. So when we think about the Toledo Recovery Plan, we can be excited about 180 million, but we should be talking about it in terms of over 300 million. That is the leverage that we've tapped into, and that is something that truly will be done for the betterment of our city. This entire plan can be seen by going to toledo.oh.gov/recovery. Specifically, in specific terms, what are some of the things that will happen? Well, we are going to add nearly 100 additional police officers to our force by the end of 2026. And when we do that, we will have more police officers on the street than we have had any time in the last 20 years. We will do what the citizens asked us to do for our youth in parks, and we will allocate $40.5 million for youth programming, summer jobs, mentoring, and other opportunities for our youth. We are going to replace every customer side lead service line in the city of Toledo. We are going to construct over 600 units of housing. We're going to demolish hundreds of commercial buildings. We are going to spend millions of dollars fighting blight, fixing sidewalks, improving parks, planting trees, and creating jobs. And yes, we are going to build a new YMCA in the central city of Toledo. What you see on the screen right now is what it is going to look like. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that what we need to offer our kids in this city? The Warren Sherman neighborhood where that YMCA will be located needs investment. And you bet I am proud to be mayor at a time where we're going to make that kind of investment in our kids. I don't care what criticism we get, our kids deserve it. And that is what we are going to do with some portion of our American Rescue Plan Toledo Recovery Plan dollars. Again, City Council adopted this in December, and we're going to do this, and it's going to transform our city. But instead of merely talking about what we are going to do, I'd like to talk about what we have already done. We're not sitting around and twiddling our thumbs and navel gazing and saying, oh, well, when should we start doing this, and debating things to death. We're already off and running. And with City Council last night approving funding for two important programs, as of today, as of this morning, City Council has allocated $64.6 million of our $180 million Toledo Recovery Plan. That's almost a third of our allotment. We're keeping our promise. We're doing what we heard in those surveys. We're doing what the citizens asked for. Don't take my word for it. Transparency is so critically important. It builds the trust that we need for government to work. So go to that website that I mentioned earlier, toledo.oh.gov/recovery, and you will not only be able to see everything that is in the plan, you'll also be able to see our progress in meeting these objectives. So in other words, in real time, you will see, there it is right there. It took a little time for our technical team to catch up with me. But there it is, that's the website. You can go there and see that we have appropriated 50% of our commitment on pre-K and 100% of our commitment on lead line customer lines. And so you can track us in real time and hold us accountable. You'll know when we're doing it, whether we've done it, how much more is left to be done. That's an important part, in my judgment, of building the trust and maintaining the trust of the citizens of Toledo. What have we already done? What will you see when you go to that website? Well, let me tell you some of the things we've done. When we did these public meetings and surveys last year, We knew we were going to hear a lot of things. We knew we were going to hear concerns about safety and investment in neighborhoods. We knew we were going to hear ideas about things we could do for our kids, and we did hear those things. We knew we'd hear about the need to replace the customer side lead lines. No one wants to happen in Toledo what happened in Flint. We knew we'd hear that. We didn't know that that was going to be number one, that that was going to be the top number one thing that the citizens of Toledo wanted. But that was the number one thing we heard at those meetings. And so do you know what we did? We listened. And so the very first thing that we appropriated money for in this entire $180 million plan was $10 million to do just this, to replace the 3,000 customer side lead service lines in our city. The photo that you are soon going to see is a photo of Karen George. She lives in the light blue house behind her that was built in the 1890s. Now, suffice it to say, we know a lot more about the dangers of lead today than we knew in the 1890s. And so at some point, Mrs. George was going to have to replace her lead service line. She probably didn't know this. I didn't know it. None of you probably know this. But while the lines on the public right-of-way are the city's responsibility, those on private property are actually the responsibility of the homeowner. So there would have come a day where Mrs. George, in her home built during the Grover Cleveland administration, was going to have to try to find $5,000 to replace her line. There she is in the photo. She's the one standing right next to Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur. She, like virtually every Toledoan, would not have enjoyed having to find $5,000 to meet that need. Fortunately, she didn't have to. Under the Toledo Recovery Plan, we're paying for it. We paid for that for her, and we'll pay for it for you and you and you and everyone in this town who needs a lead line replaced on the private side. We will do that. That's what this plan is for. We are investing this money in you. This is what it looks like in video form when it happens, but we need your help. We need you to go to that website, toledo.oh.gov/lead-line, and do the simple home test and register for it. And then we'll come and we'll do this important thing for you. What else have we already done? We have, City Council has allocated money to expand ShotSpotter. Why? Because ShotSpotter is working. ShotSpotter allows our officers to go to the scene of a gunshot the instant it happens. I think a lot of people will be surprised to know that only 20% of all gunshots are called into 911. Because of ShotSpotter, our officers can go directly to the scene of a gunshot immediately, whether or not anyone calls 911. It has already saved lives because of the Toledo Rescue Plan. We are expanding it into an additional neighborhood. Arrests due to ShotSpotter have increased 25% year over year, and firearms recovered because of ShotSpotter have grown by 104% year over year, as that graph demonstrates. We have already, again, not what we're going to do, we have already allocated funding for inclusive and accessible playgrounds at Ottawa and Navarre Park. This is important to all of us. A real leader on this is Councilman Sam Meldon, who's with us tonight and deserves our thanks and appreciation for being such a fighter on this issue. Full playground replacements, in other words, totally brand new playgrounds, have, not in the future, already had money allocated at Oakdale, Edgar Holmes, Gene Overton, Maya Clinton, and Highland Parks. The tennis courts at Germain Park, probably the epicenter of tennis in Toledo, those courts have seen better days. And that's why we have already allocated money to totally replace and fix them. In addition to that, there's 16 other locations where smaller tennis court operations and basketball courts have already had money allocated to fix. The shelter house at Jamie Farr Park, just across the river, not too far from here, already allocated money to fix it. And the soccer complex at Schneider Park, money has already been allocated to address that. We're going to do way more than that. I'm just telling you what we've already done. Want to know something else we've already done? We've already appropriated funding to make sure that the kids of this city have productive and healthy things to do this year. And whether it is a job, whether it is an activity, whether it's a sport or enrichment, there will be an opportunity this year for every kid of the city who wants to do it to do that. This is something you're going to be seeing all over the city of Toledo. This is a fantastic document developed by our new Marcoms department. It is beautiful, it's wonderful, it's helpful. You're going to see it at every library, every community center. We're sending it home with every kid who goes to Toledo Public Schools or Washington Locals, so they can sit down with mom or dad or grandma and grandpa or loved one to look at it. There is stuff for kids to do. We know it's needed, we believe in it, and we invested in it. There are over 100 programs for kids to do this summer. I know it is a common lament. Geez, there's nothing for kids to do. That's not true. It's just not true anymore. There are over 100 programs that the city is funding for our kids. A small handful of them come with a fee. I think there's a theater camp or an acting camp or something along those lines where there's a fee. Okay. 95% of these things are free, totally free. So, thank you. And you know what? Part of the reason for a speech like this is because you probably don't know that, okay? You need to know. We need to spread the word. So you have a young one who wants to go to an art camp? Free. Swimming lessons? Free. Basketball? Free. Football? Free. Volleyball, golf, soccer, tennis, horseback riding? Free. You want a garden? Good. It's free. Science and math enrichment? STEM classes, learning about? Free. You want to be the next Pavarotti and learn some opera? Free. You want to learn how to do a podcast? Free. Reading programs? Free. Marching band, drumline? Free. It's free. It's better than free because we'll also give you a free lunch at each one of these things. I know there's a lot for grown-ups to focus on, okay? Spend some time focusing on this. It's just not the case that there's nothing for kids to do. There's over 100 things in this book, and darn near every one of them are free. Please take advantage of it. Please take advantage of it. And by the way, that's not what we're going to do. We've already done it. What else have we already done? I mentioned Councilman Meldon earlier, but he's also been a leader on making sure that neighborhoods are safe, especially when it comes to traffic. City Council has allocated money for Vision Zero, which is a program that is dedicated to the goal of having zero traffic fatalities within 10 years. We have already allocated money for the Blight Team, the Clean Toledo Blight Team, part of our new Department of Urban Beautification. I'm not talking about what they might do in the future. Looking at this graph right here, you will see that they have already collected 1.6 million pounds of debris, over 2,100 tires, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we don't want in our neighborhoods. Hope Toledo, just last night, City Council allocated money for the goal of pre-K. You've heard me talk about this. Here's why I care about it so much. We are behind the other big cities in Ohio when it comes to educational attainment. We just are. In a country where over 50% of Americans have some education beyond high school, in Ohio it's only 34%, in Toledo it's 17%, and among African Americans in Toledo it's 9%. One of the reasons for that is we are the only big city that does not already provide universal pre-K. We have to do it. City Council understands that. That's why they stepped up and passed that money last night, which, by the way, was $1.25 million, but should be thought about as $20 million because it leverages that much money from ProMedica, TPS, and others. And finally, the last thing that we have already done, part of the $64 million that's already been allocated, City Council last night supported the arts. The arts community was perhaps hardest hit by the pandemic. They were the first ones to close and the last ones to reopen when we had to socially distance. And yes, they are artists, and art feeds our soul, that's true. But they're also business people. And we need to help these small business people and these artisans get back on their feet. And Council did last night. And that is a summary of what we have already done. There is so much more to do, but I'm confident we can do it because we have such a good Toledo City Council and such a strong relationship with our City Council. Toledo City Council and I, we have a love-hate relationship. Specifically, they love to hate me. But in all seriousness, that's normal and that's natural, and I say it in jest. Every chief executive and his or her legislative branch has a good-natured back and forth, and it should be that way. The president and Congress need to work things out. The mayor and council needs to work things out. And while sometimes there's disagreement, that's okay. My wife is also here tonight, who mid-speech, I realized I forgot to recognize. So I will point her out right now by saying, I sometimes disagree with my wife, and I'm actually in love with her. So, of course, you're going to sometimes disagree with people you work with. That's okay, that's healthy. The public should know that of all of the ordinances we passed last year, 632, 91% of them passed unanimously. Unanimously. So we have our moments of disagreement, yes, but in general, we govern by consensus. And that's why I think what we do in Toledo works. People don't like Washington. They don't like the politics of Washington. But it's not because they disagree with the policies. To some extent, maybe they don't. You know what they really hate? The fighting. They don't know what Congress is debating. They just know that they're always yelling and screaming and fighting. It's not good for a democracy to only yell and scream and fight. Fortunately, we have a council and administration that work together, and 91% of the time actually work so well together that we pass things unanimously. It's a great credit to our city, and I'm proud of it. Now, the Toledo Recovery Plan is only the most obvious example of federal opportunities that are that give us a chance to invest in ourselves. But there are other opportunities, other federal dollars that aren't necessarily a part of the American Rescue Plan that are just as important, and we're tapping into them just as much to make sure that our community gets to where it needs to be. Another one of the reasons that we decided to have this speech in the warm environs of the Glass City Metropark is because this very Metropark, long before the citizens approved the bond issue, long before ProMedica and the other corporate interests threw their money in, long before the private fundraising drives, this region came together and applied for something called a RAISE grant. And we won a $23.6 million RAISE grant that kickstarted what you saw earlier on that screen, and kickstarted what we're doing here behind me. That $23 million was federal grant money that we came together, fought for as a region, and we did it. We won, and because of it, we're enjoying this success. Sure. Bitwise, over in the uptown area where the old Jefferson Center is being rehabbed and turned into a high-tech incubator in a corridor. That is the next opportunity where we have come together as a region, put differences aside, and applied for the exact same grant for the exact same size of money. We haven't been awarded it yet, but I feel really good about our chances. So we can do this. We can make these decisions, whether you can hear me on the microphone or not. We can still do it. But the reality is we can do more, and we need to do more, and we will do more. Part of the problem is that too often our region doesn't work as well together fighting for grants the way we should. The Toledo Blade did a wonderful job. We give credit where credit is due, pointing out this problem that our community faces. There were several stories a few Sundays ago that talked about grant money that was being left on the table that prevented us from doing as much as we need to do on rail, as much as we need to do on train transportation. Frankly, I think another area that is missed is the airport. We have an airport that struggles and could do better if we did a better job fighting for and winning and cooperating as a region on these grant opportunities. Now, Amazon Air has come to our airport, and that's great. That's an indication of of how airports can be catalysts for economic development, but we need to do more. We know we can do more. Our region cannot afford to leave money on the table. The problem is, right now, nobody wakes up every day and says to him or herself, what are we doing to coordinate ourselves on these grants? No one does that right now. That is changing. I can announce today that a very talented individual will be joining us and will be leading our efforts to coordinate our region when it comes to fighting for these grants. His name is Michael Beasley. Mike is a very talented man. He has held various positions in government, public administration, and frankly, politics. And those are the three things you need to be good at in order to push elbows and bump others out of the way and get the federal money that we deserve. Mike can do this. He can lead this effort, and he has agreed to do it. He's been the clerk of city council. He was the county administrator. Currently, he's the county he's the city administrator in Oregon, although has agreed and has announced that he is stepping back from that to lead this effort. He'll be housed at Government Center. It'll be wonderful to tap into his knowledge and vision, but importantly, he's being paid for by a consortium of private entities and other community partners who know that we need to do better and that we need someone who does wake up every day focused on making sure we are getting the grants and making the most of the opportunities we face. The Chamber of Commerce, Connect Toledo, the University of Toledo, the Toledo Community Foundation, the Port Authority, the City of Toledo, Lucas County. Those are just some of the organizations that have contributed or will contribute financially to bring this person on so that we are no longer leaving money on the table. And so whether it is our rail infrastructure, whether it's our airport or anything in between, we are going to be putting our best foot forward as a region to get the money we deserve. Mike would appreciate the applause, I assume. Now, these are wonderful things, and these are things that are layered on top of what we've already been doing. Sure, it's great. This $180 million is great. When you think about the additional $132 million of leverage, wonderful. This is all wonderful, but it's on top of what we've already been doing. And I would argue that what we have been doing, generally speaking, is moving the city in the right direction. There are 5 main areas that I have always focused on as your mayor that are core bedrock values of what a successful administration, a successful city needs to do. And the first of those is budget strength. If you look at the graph that is coming up on the screen right now, there's no way I can explain it better than you see right there on the screen. Right now, as I stand here, we have a rainy day fund of $51 million. 10 years ago, we had a negative rainy day fund. That meant that we had to rob Peter we had to take money that we owed Peter in order to pay a debt that we owed to Paul. It was a dangerous way to live as a city, and thank goodness we're no longer in that position. By 2015, our rainy day fund was up to $4 million. And here today, despite COVID and despite everything that has happened since 2015, our rainy day fund is now 10 times larger than it was back then. We should all be proud of it. City Council is a part of that fiscal wisdom, and it's one of the reasons that we're positioned for success. The second bedrock value is a commitment to our safety forces, growing the size of our forces and making sure they have the resources needed to succeed. When it comes to police and police classes, you've already heard me say that the American Rescue Plan is going to be used to grow the size of our police department by 100 officers, the highest it's been any time in the last 20 years. Look at this graph. In 2016, we had 0. There was not one single police officer brought on to the force. Look what we're doing now. We have a police class graduating in 2 weeks. We're going to take 3 weeks off to catch our breath, and then we're bringing another class on June 24th of 45 more officers. That kind of back-to-back police classes is totally unprecedented and an indication of our commitment to making sure that we are promoting a strong safety force. It's also worth noting that since I spoke last year in my State of the City at the Paris, every officer, every TPD uniformed officer who interacts with the public now wears a body-worn camera. That's a big deal. That didn't used to be the case in Toledo, now it is. It protects the officer, it protects the citizens, and it's an important part of transparency, and I'm proud to say that we're a city that does that. Our fire department, Our fire department is now being led by our wonderful chief, Allison Armstrong, who is here. In 1985, there were 0 women on the fire department. 0, not one. Nothing but men protected us in the fire department. Now, 35 years later, we have our first ever woman chief, and she deserves applause. And she is leading a department that is stronger than ever. 62,000 calls for service, 53,000 EMS calls, 48 new firefighters came on last October. The Leave It Behind program, which is the first of its kind in Ohio, has saved lives of people who are struggling with ODing, struggling with drugs. It saved lives. The PS 419 program benefits both our police and fire operations. Last year was the first year for that program. We're trying to stoke interest among kids to maybe consider a career in public service in the safety forces that they wouldn't have otherwise. And so, in partnership with Toledo Public Schools, Toledo, we've offered a new curriculum, started last year. Dr. Cecilia Adams, who is no longer a member of City Council, but this was a passion of hers when she was, would be proud to know that in our first year, there were 15 sophomores, 14 juniors, and 5 seniors who participated. One senior has already passed both the physical and written test and is now in line waiting to be a firefighter. Another senior has passed the physical test and is waiting for another written test to be offered. We're already creating what the dream of that program was, to identify Toledo kids, young people who might want to consider that career. All juniors and seniors are certified in CPR and first aid and basic life support, but we're also finding that careers are being born. It's a wonderful testament to our commitment to public safety. The third bedrock value, and I think anyone who's ever heard me speak knows this would be on the list, road repair. The graph you're going to see again says it all. Before the citizens in November of 2020 passed the Toledo roads levy, we resurfaced less than 3 lane miles of road in the entire city. We resurfaced 7 roads, not 7 lane miles, 7 roads. The citizens passed the Toledo roads levy, and look what's happened since. Last year, an all-time record, 42 lane miles either reconstructed or resurfaced of residential roads. It was the all-time record, and I hope we enjoyed it because it only lasted for a year. Because we're breaking the record this year by doing 44.5 residential lane miles reconstructed or resurfaced. That's 116 curbed roads. But one of the benefits of this commitment is that for the first time ever, we're able to fix unimproved streets, the ones without curbs that are kind of gravelly. We used to be able, we didn't fix any. There was no funding stream to ever fix those roads. Now we are, and when you add on what we're going to be able to do on unimproved roads, on top of what we're doing for the improved roads, that number of 116 roads grows to 196 over 74 lane miles. So 2 years ago, 7 roads were fixed. This year, nearly 200. That is tremendous progress, and we should all be proud of it. An investment in neighborhoods is a fourth core value of my time as mayor and of any successful city. And we've worked hard to keep our promises there. And we do this, why? For the betterment of our city, for what Irene Drouillard wanted for us 100 years ago. We promised 2 years ago that by the end of 2021, all 27,000 of our lights in the city would be converted to LED. We kept that promise on time and on schedule. And the video you're seeing is me attempting my very best to screw in the final LED light. Thank goodness there was an actual professional there to help me do it. But we met our deadline in the last week of December last year. Now, every one of our lights is an LED light. It's not only better for us, better for our health, better for the earth, better for our pocketbook. It's also an important safety component. In the first neighborhood that we did this, they saw violent crime drop by 57%. So I believe that's an important part of making neighborhoods strong. Our neighborhoods department, our housing efforts, our community development efforts are truly earning national attention. And one of our leaders in that regard, Rosalind Clemens, deserves to be thanked for her hard work. She has put programs together that are game-changing for our city, including a major announcement that I'm about to make. But before I do that, I want to talk about what her and her team accomplished last year. For the first time in the city's history, a comprehensive 10-year housing strategy was adopted. First of its kind in the city's history, 60 different stakeholders gave their input, took part in that, and City Council approved it in October. Did a lot of things, not the least of which was elevating the discussion in this city about affordable housing, what it is and what it isn't. Affordable housing is not Section 8. It is not public housing. It is a math equation. This is just simple math. This is a math equation. If you spend more than 30% of your income on housing, it means that you are cost burdened. That's the phrase they use. And it means that you are a candidate for and would benefit from affordable housing. There, with a median income in this city of $36,000, there are quite a few people who spend 30% or more of their income on, on housing, and that's too much. This isn't a crazy social experiment. This is about helping the economy. If you're not spending all that money on your housing, you know what you are doing? You're going to walleye games, you're going to mud hen games, you're going to Tony Pacos, you're spending money in the economy. That's what this is about as well. The percentage of people who benefit from affordable housing mirrors almost perfectly the percentage of Toledoans who exist in our city along race and income and gender guidelines. Affordable housing's for us, it's for all of us. And that's why we're so committed to it. And that's why over the next 3 years, we're going to see 11 of these developments all throughout town. Some of them, and there's going to be a total of 628 units across our city. That's what we learned from the housing study. Some of these are already popping up around town. Corner of Monroe and Secor, an intersection of great debate in the last 5 years. Now the Secor senior lofts are there. Look at that, it's beautiful. And Grandma and Grandpa live there, and it's a wonderful place to be. We're doing Driggs Dairy is going to be next, 60 more affordable units. And this is helping people meet a need. It's helping them keep more money in their pockets so they can spend it in the economy. This is a good thing, and I'm proud that we're leading on it. The Emergency Rental Assistance Program has helped over 2,000 people in our community receive about $10.7 million, an average award of over $5,200 to help pay rent, and it's covered on average of 7 months of rent for them. That's helpful to real people in our town. The citizens of Toledo, the taxpayers, should know and should be proud that our team administered that program so well that the federal government, the Department of Treasury, took money away from other communities that weren't spending it as efficiently and gave us 19 million more dollars because we were efficiently getting the money into the hands of the people who needed it, and now we have even more people we can help. That we should be so proud that we take this responsibility properly, that we take it seriously and execute it properly, and we are the winners for having done it. In terms of mortgage assistance, $338,000 was leveraged to help 50 people pay mortgages, an average of about $7,000 per person. Housing preservation, 90 owner-occupied folks received help rehabbing their homes, 58 new roofs, over 100 emergency repairs for senior and disabled. Any part of protecting neighborhoods involves making sure that lead is not a part of what our children have to interact with. And so far, 46 residential units have been made lead safe with an $800,000 investment. The lead safe ordinance that City Council passed, its first deadline, its first compliance deadline is at the end of June. So good thing our efforts are coming into focus. We're turning the corner and making a difference on lead. Under our Home at Last program, there are 76 new homeowners in Toledo as a result. We've created 76 brand new homeowners. We leveraged our resources into $5.3 million of bank mortgages. And again, the average amount of assistance was about $7,000 per person. With all of these successes, it is no surprise that the federal government has recognized our work and has made and has awarded us a very generous opportunity. And this is the announcement I was alluding to. We talk about the federal grants, and Mr. Beasley is going to come in and help us, help our region coordinate as we fight for different pots of money. Well, here's a pot of money that we fought for and have already received from the the Department of Housing and Urban Development. $37 million for a Section 108 loan pool. This is going to guarantee loan assistance for real estate acquisition and development, housing rehab, small business finance. In other words, this is a $37 million pool of money on top and in addition to everything else I talked about tonight that is going to go directly into neighborhoods, into small businesses, into housing, into our community. That's a big deal, and there's going to be a lot of people in our city who will be helped because of it. Fifthly and finally, the fifth area on which we have layered the opportunities from the Toledo Rescue Plan is economic development. And this is an area where I think even whatever detractors we may have at City Hall would have to concede that we've done fairly well. Our unemployment rate is 4.1%. I know it is not a perfect gauge of the health of a community, but it is one gauge. And look at this graph. 2 years ago at this time, it was over 20%. And yes, of course, that was at the beginning of the pandemic. But just in the last year, it's come down an additional 2%. That's hard to do. And it's an indication of the economic momentum we have in the city. As I stand here today, not only is our unemployment rate lower than in other Great Lakes cities like Pittsburgh and Buffalo and Cleveland, Chicago and Detroit, heck, it's even lower than other so-called destination cities in warm weather places like Los Angeles and Las Vegas, Memphis, New Orleans, and Houston. It is because of that that Site Selection magazine, yet again, has bestowed upon us the greatest honor a city can get in the field of economic development. And now, for 6 years in a row, Toledo is ranked in the top 10 of all cities in this country in terms of new business development, new business investment. And why not? Of course, because our economic development department is working its tail off. Right now, it is working on 37 different projects with over $1 billion of investment, over 650 new units of housing, 429 new hotel rooms, 1,100 new jobs. Look at just some of the high-profile major project success stories of the last year. 4 long vacant, long blighted properties have now been brought back from the dead. It's not a vacant Southwick Mall anymore. It's an Amazon delivery station with 410 jobs and $25 million of investment. Over near the Jeep site, the old Medcore textile leather site, now it's a Stellantis vehicle customization operation. 300 new jobs, $23 million of investment, just started production last month. The Northtown Mall, we are partnering with North Point Development on an exciting project that's going to turn that into an industrial park, a minimum of 500 jobs and $75 million of investment. But I want to point this out. It is very similar to what is happening over at the old Jeep site, which we now call the Overland Industrial Site. There are 2,500 jobs over at Overland Industrial Site, yet at Northtown, there's more space and more square footage. The 500 jobs that are being promised there is a classic example of under-promising. There are 5 times more jobs over at Overland and a smaller footprint. Well, there's no question that hundreds, at least those 500, if not thousands of jobs will soon be popping up at Northtown Mall. And finally, you can't talk about brownfields without talking about something that's happened not too far from here at the old Ironville site, Cleveland Cliffs. It's been talked about for a while and been built for a while, but it finally opened within the last year. 140 jobs, $1 billion of investment. It makes a higher quality steel with less greenhouse gas emissions. That's a good thing. Brownfields in general are such an important part of the economic story of a city like Toledo. We've put 655 acres back into use, 3,000 new jobs, and it's why we are also creating something we're calling the Toledo Brownfield Redevelopment Program. Again, through the Toledo Recovery Plan, we're putting $6 million aside to help rebuild these industrial spaces. The first recipient of this new program has been awarded with partnership of the Land Bank. The property on Elm Street, 1502 Elm Street, as you see in the picture here. We're demolishing that warehouse, which has a deep and emotional connection to the neighborhood. I'm glad that we're demolishing that under this program. I mentioned Driggs Dairy. Some of the $6 million from that brownfield program will be used to clean up Driggs Dairy so it can become the senior housing that we plan. They don't want me to announce the name of the company yet, though I asked, though they are allowing me to tease by saying that there will be a major announcement very soon at the old Teledyne site. You're familiar with the Teledyne plant over on Lasky, where they once made parts for the Tomahawk missile. Soon there will be 55 new jobs, new to Toledo, not relocated within the city, but brand new jobs to Toledo, $1.7 million of investment in that important corridor on Lasky Road in West Toledo. The Vibrancy Initiative is part of what our economic development team is doing, supporting revitalization efforts that create jobs, fight blight, and protect spaces, especially historic structures. The goal is to attract businesses to neighborhood corridors, those old neighborhood economic development districts, and there's 2 components of it. A facade improvement program that has already assisted 28 projects and leveraged $668,000 into $57 million of private investment, and what we're calling a white box initiative that'll be launched in the next 30 days that essentially will make sure that the inside of the business is ready for development. There is one last new program that we want to announce, and that is what we're calling the Toledo Innovation Grant. This is new for businesses in low and moderate income census tracts that are investing in innovative technologies and machinery. Um, a similar spirit to what we talked about earlier at Bitwise in the Uptown neighborhood, where that's going to, there are 375 tech jobs that we brought in from California. Look, Toledo's always been a place where we know that we could use our brawn. We can use our brain too. And that's what this innovative tech corridor is all about. That's what the Toledo Innovation Grant is all about. And it really builds upon our history as a city. The United Nations has declared this year, 2022, as the International Year of Glass. We're going to celebrate that in Toledo with the major glass partners that help build this city: OI, Owens Corning, Libby for Solar, Pilkington, NSG. And it ties into the spirit of innovation that I'm talking about. For the betterment of our city. There was invention that came from that glass industry. There will be new inventions that take place in the Innovation District or with the new grant we just talked about. Michael Owens, the person that Owens Corning in Owens, Illinois is named after, he invented the glass bottle. I think some of us are of an age where we just assume the glass bottle's already been around. No, he invented it. He worked with glass in such a way that he came up with something new. 30 years after that, the science wing of Owens, Illinois had some scientists working on a piece of glass and shaving that glass into little tiny pieces, maybe we'll call them fibers, and realized that this fiberglass could have a use. And it did. And a spin-off company was formed in 1938 called Owens Corning. And clearly the innovation that came from that company is part of our DNA. It's right that we celebrate these things, and now we're incentivizing it with resources from the Toledo Rescue Plan. Now, these are all good things. And there are things that we should celebrate, and there are things that we should be proud of. But whatever good is happening in our city, whatever momentum we have, does not obscure the heartache that we feel over the lives that have been lost to violence over the last 3 weeks. I don't know that you can solve a problem if you don't talk about it, and I don't know that we can talk about it properly until we define it. So it first has to be said, though this is nothing to celebrate, but it tells the story of what we're dealing with right now, that there are many kinds of crime in Toledo right now, not all, but many kinds that are actually down. Burglaries are down this year. Robberies are down this year. And yes, homicides are down this year, statistically. But even though homicides might be down, no one can think that what we've seen over the last 3 weeks is acceptable. It's not acceptable, and it's not part of a city that we want to be a part of. It's not. What we've seen in the last 3 weeks is unacceptable. It doesn't erase the heartache, but it does help us. It does guide our path and what we need to do to recognize that in general, and I'm going to say this carefully so it's not misconstrued, in general, we are not seeing random violence. Random violence is, it's the old cowboy in the Western going down Main Street and just randomly shooting into the saloon. That's just not what's happening in Toledo. Unfortunately, we're seeing retaliation. We are seeing revenge. Doesn't make it any less heartbreaking, but it speaks to what we need to do to solve it. In almost every case that we've seen, the victim and the attacker knew each other, or if not the victim, the target knew his or her attacker. And of course, there have been too many cases where the target was not the person who was shot, but an innocent bystander. It's interpersonal, and it's heartbreaking. But it's not all gang. We might think, oh, these are, no. You know what we've seen a lot this year is domestic violence. That's an interpersonal relationship where you bet the attacker and the victim knew each other. It's a problem that we know is real. George Sarantu, one of our councilmen, is here, and he and his colleagues led an effort. Teresa Morris, I believe, was part of the effort as well, to make sure that in the budget we passed this year, there was money for a new domestic violence prosecutor. And I'm glad they did that. It shows the seriousness of what we're seeing in our city this year. There's also resources to you if you feel you are in a relationship that could turn violent. If you look at the screen, the domestic violence shelter at the YWCA is a resource for you. Call those numbers, contact them. We want you to be a part of what we're trying to build in this city, not a statistic. Ultimately, the question is, well, what are you doing? What is the city doing? Throughout this speech, you have heard parts of the answer. And sure, this might be the 7th time I've said it, but I'll say it again. We're growing the size of the police force. 100 new officers within 4 years, highest level in 20 years. The youth programming, remember all the 100 programs, most of them free, all of them with a free lunch? That's a part of it. The YMCA, the beautiful YMCA that we put up on the screen earlier, that's certainly a part of it. We have also undertaken operations this year, the police department, that they call TEAM, the Toledo Enhancement Area Method, the TEAM method. And we've announced 2 up until now, the laser operation and the phaser operation. Laser because it was focused in the LaGrange area, the LaGrange area strategic enforcement response, and the other one that starts with F was at 5 points. What did they do? It wasn't just about policing, it was about code enforcement and cleaning up blight. 90 firearms, 263 abandoned vehicles were collected, 400 arrests occurred. Now, I said when we announced those back in January, we're going to be doing these all year. We're going to be doing them in different parts of the city, and we're not always going to announce when we do them. That's the point. And so tonight, I can announce the results of our 3rd team operation, which just concluded this past Sunday. It was focused in East Toledo. It's called Essex, the ES standing for East Side. 42 guns were seized, 199 arrests, 193 junk and abandoned cars towed, 64 blighted properties cited, 316 parking tags. Now, how does this fit into our strategy? There's been a lot of discussion on our strategy, and maybe I have failed in not communicating well enough what our strategy is. If you have the opportunity to look at the screen, it talks about the mayor's initiative to reduce gun violence. It makes up, there are 3 components to it: prevention, intervention, and enforcement. And if you look at it, the enforcement side is the smallest. Now, enforcement means police, and we need police. And Chief Kral is here, and his team live this every day. It's crucially important. It's also the smallest part of the model. Just literally look at the enforcement box. It's the smallest box. Look at the there's only 2 boxes under it. Most of what we're trying to do is on the prevention side and the intervention side. Those are the largest boxes. There are 7 different sub-programs under it. We are doing work here, but most of the work for us to succeed is in prevention and intervention. There's been so much talk about our Save Our Community model and Joanne Armour when he was the director. And what is that all about? This is new. We've never heard about this. We don't know if we like this. Is it working? The violence interrupters and such. Nothing has been more discussed and discussed in this town. That's one part of this plan. It's a tiny box that fit under the intervention model. Now, we believe in it, and we are working on it. Joanne took another opportunity, so we need a new director. We have been interviewing for the last 2 weeks, and we are soon to fill that position. We also know, and I've talked to leaders on city council, they know too, that for it to succeed, it has always been the case that it shouldn't be housed at City Hall. Sure, maybe for a year or 2 it could be incubated at City Hall, but eventually it was going to have to move out into the community. There would have to be a community entity or a structure, a community resource that would take over the program, or at least work on it in a way to provide the services to make it work. I think there was agreement we need to do that. I think the time has come. We have a number of partners that have reached out to us, and we will be working with them to find the right fit so that we can take this model to the next level. And we're going to do that, and that's the next piece of it. But the fact is, while so often when something bad happens, there's an inclination to immediately look to government center, I hope everyone knows that we also need to look into the mirror, and that includes me. Because while there is a role for government, while there is a role for police, there's also a role for the pastor, There's also a role for the coach. There's also a role for the neighbor. There's also a role for the mentor and the teacher. I know it's a cliche, the old African proverb, but it is true. It takes a village. We all have to be a part of this. Irene Drouillard tapped into that spirit. Now, her story didn't necessarily have a happy ending. That $21 that she put in the bank, it never made it to me, or the $1,000 it would have been had it grown with interest the way it was supposed to. Do you know why? Because 8 years later, her bank collapsed in the Great Depression. Every bank in Toledo but one collapsed. And so her $21 is gone. It never made it. But you know what remains? Her spirit, her belief in her city, her love of Toledo, and her notion that we all must work for the betterment of Toledo. Now, not everyone is. Some of the people involved in this gun violence aren't working for the betterment of Toledo. These folks who are doing donuts in the middle of the intersection and setting the intersection on fire, they're not working for the betterment of our city, by the way. I think we are close, we hope, to make an arrest there. Those folks don't care about their safety or the safety of their fellow citizens. They need to be arrested, and we know that. They're not working for the betterment of our city, but most people are. And we have a spirit in this community that needs to be celebrated, which is why we are creating the Irene Drouillard Award, to give to citizens of our community who want to give back and work for the betterment of our city. We have our first two award winners. Well, I'm sorry, we have two award winners. One is with us. The other got sick and had to leave school early today and is heartbroken he couldn't make it. We have two categories, a youth category and a advanced youth category. And we're going to have a ceremony and give these awards shortly. But tonight I want to recognize our winners. Joyce Singer, who is with us. Born and raised in Toledo, Glenwood Park School, has done so much at Glenwood School, started a community concert series with her own money, just because she wanted to see something positive happening in her community. The Old West End Planning Committee, for the first time in 30 years, has recognized it, and now Glenwood Park is going to be a part of the Old West End Festival. It's a labor of love. Our city is built on the shoulders of people like Joyce. She's here tonight. I just want to recognize her, maybe have her wave and say hi. Our youth winner is a student, a 9-year-old at St. Pius School, who is heartbroken that he can't be here. He had to leave school today with a fever and a sick stomach, and his mom just couldn't see his way. He couldn't make it tonight, but I know he's watching on television. I'm told it's Max Titkemeyer. We might remember him. Max is the young man who started a lemonade stand to raise money for Officer Diaz's family after he lost his life in service of the city, and then a hot chocolate stand when Officer Stalker lost his life. No one asked him to do it. His parents didn't tell him to do it. It wasn't a class project. He did it on his own when he heard that there were folks who had lost a dad and lost a husband and needed help. On his own, he raised $17,000 on those two sales. He bought and presented that $17 to Chief Kroll in his fortnight lunchbox. Max is the winner of our Youth Award because the fact of the matter is Toledo is full of people like Joyce and Max who have the spirit of Irene Drouillard. We have faced adversity before in the city, and we've always bounced back. Sure, we've been knocked down. If there is anything good about being knocked down as often as we have, it is that we know how to get back up. We know how to dust ourselves off and fight back. And there is a togetherness in this city that most other communities don't have. You know what? Maybe it is because we feel like we've been picked on over the years. Maybe it is because there are jokes whose punchline is Toledo. Maybe it's because of that John Denver song. I don't know. But we do have a chip on our shoulder, and that's okay, because that means we rally together, we fight for one another, we have each other's backs. We always have. And that is what this moment calls for, is the unity and the spirit to work for the betterment of our city. I am going to end tonight with something that has been on my heart really for the last few weeks. And it is a speech made by Bobby Kennedy the day after Martin Luther King was killed. I think a lot of us have heard or remember what he said the day Martin Luther King was killed. He was in Indianapolis, and in a time long before cell phones, he actually broke the news of Martin Luther King's assassination to the crowd there in Indianapolis. He talked about taming the savageness of man and making gentle the life of the world. He quoted the Greeks, and he calmed the crowd, frankly, in a way that maybe only someone whose own brother had been killed by gun violence could have done. I want to talk in my last 60 seconds about what he said the next day in Cleveland. He gave a speech in Cleveland at the Sheraton Hotel right there in downtown near Terminal Tower. He named it, he only spoke for 10 minutes, he named it the mindless menace of violence. First line of the speech talked about the mindless menace of violence, and he asked why. What has violence ever accomplished? What has it ever created? No martyr's cause has ever been stilled by the assassin's bullet. No wrongs have ever been righted. After all, he said, a sniper is not a hero, only a coward. But, he said, there is another kind of violence just as deadly. It's the violence of institutions, indifference, inaction, and slow decay. It's a violence that afflicts the poor and poisons relations between us simply because our skin has different colors. It's the slow destruction of a child by hunger, schools without books, homes without heat in the winter, and this afflicts us all. Our lives are too short, he said. Our time on this planet is too short, and the work to be done is too great for this spirit to flourish any longer. And he was right. Our times on this planet are short. And 2 months later, he was killed by gun violence. He's not with us either. But his spirit is, and his message is, just like Irene Drouillard's, just like the heroes who live among us, like Joyce and Max. We can do this. We can rally. Toledoans have always rallied together. We need to act for the betterment of our city, and I know we will. God bless you, and God bless the great city of Toledo, Ohio.